Hey guys, welcome back for another review. Today I've got the new Sykik Rider ZR1. This is the new flagship DVR system. Think of it as a dash cam, front and rear, for your motorcycle. So we're going to take a look at this. I'll do a quick unboxing, talk about a few things, go over some of its features. We'll get it installed. I'll put it on the FGR here again. I've done two previous models, two or three, can't remember. They've listened to critique and criticism and the wants of users. They've really put some cool features in here, so I hope that it functions as well as some of the paperwork says, because it does have some cool new stuff. Let's take a look. Starting off, we have very nice packaging, very Apple-esque, quite a tight fit. You know, packaging does make certainly a difference in people's perception, if not to the product. We have a quick setup guide, and all of this and more is actually available on their website. And that brings me to really the first negative I have to say. Look, this is 2019. Having improper English, having wrong information, having different information between your website and printed materials is inexcusable. Every company outside the US needs to simply hire US-based English native-speaking proofreaders to go through everything. One of the major points of this new model is the head unit is supposed to be waterproof, when in fact it's not. It's water resistant, and some of their documentation says it's waterproof, mounted on the dash, on your handlebars, yet on the website and the PDFs, it actually says it's just a water-resistant screen. As you can see, it's using the same pin and pad design as Cena's, which are also merely water resistant. And I can tell you through personal experience that over long-term water exposure, these do corrode and fail. So this is fine for leaving out and using while you're riding, especially if it's behind a dash or a windscreen or such, but you can't leave it out in the rain. It is not waterproof. The cameras and cables are, but not the head unit. So that's something to note. But we do have, I'll show you in a bit, a mounting base, and this quickly clips to it. So much, much easier. And it is possible to put this now on your bars and use it as a display. So that's really cool. And inside we have a plethora of cables. We have the cameras themselves, which, as I mentioned, are waterproof. So you don't need to worry at all about where you mount these. They can be in direct water spray from your tires or the road up front. Totally normal. They're Sony sensors. They should have the same or better performance as the previous models, which I didn't have any problem with whatsoever. Front and rear cameras, enough cable length to go anywhere on virtually any bike. And you have a number of power options. You can wire directly to the battery with the fuse, or you can even use a power bank and power it via USB. So that's completely up to you. I'll be actually using this today just because this isn't a permanent install going on the bike, but you can mount it directly. You can mount it through a distribution box, which I actually recommend. However you want to do it, and plenty of cable to, again, get anywhere. If you want to mount it under the seat, if you want to run it up to your handlebars, you can do that very easily. We have the actual mount that everything connects to, and a little screw mount back here for mounting wherever you need to if you want to go on the bars. The DIN connectors are very high quality. That's a very snug, watertight, again, fit. No problems whatsoever there. We have a temporary screw bar clamp if you want to mount it that way. Obviously good for quick attachment. I don't know about permanent. And a little plastic. I would like to see this lock ring metal just for fatigue, especially if it's left out in the sun. And that's what actually mounts to your base. And then the USB adapter if you want to power it that way instead of the fuse connector. And some camera mounts, microfiber cloth to clean your screen, and some zip ties. And that's really it. The install should be exactly the same as previous models, with the difference being this no longer has to be taped anywhere directly to the bike, and you can pop it out of the mount. So I'm going to put it outside up front. Let's see how good the screen is. Let's go through the install and then put it through its paces. Now this is the mid-range model of the ZR1. There are three. There's just the straight DVR camera system. It records the two cameras, the built-in audio, and that's it. Or you have this version, which also includes Bluetooth and allows you to talk through your comm system into your video. So should be very cool for motovlogging or going on vacation or trips or whatever. You can record your voice. So we'll be testing that. We'll be testing the connection and the audio quality. I'll say I'm not expecting anything high hopes because I know that Sena and Cardo and everybody else limits the high quality only between their own units. So it'll probably be making what's called a phone connection, which is low audio quality, but we'll see how it works. And then they also have a third model, which also includes Wi-Fi to connect to your phone and use it as a remote screen. So you could mount it anywhere under the seat and use your phone at any time as the display, because a lot of us run our phones up front and we don't need two screens. So I've got it on the bench here just testing it. Got the cameras plugged in. Everything is functioning perfectly fine. It's powering up. Note, there is no separate power on or off of the unit. To actually power it on or off, you unplug the display from the wiring harness. To navigate, it's actually a little cumbersome, but once you get used to it, it's fine, and you really don't ever have to use the display itself. It's more just to see. I will say the display itself, top quality, excellent picture quality, no problems whatsoever. It is a low quality TFT screen though, so you do need to mount it in direct angle to your vision. You can see here it looks fine, and then just off angle, it pretty much disappears. So make sure you mount it properly. You've got up and down buttons, and all they do while it's recording, and it's recording pretty much all the time it's on, unless you're in the menus, it's recording if it's plugged in. It cycles through the different front or rear only, and then a split screen or the picture in picture. So you can see whatever you want, and I'm going to assume, I haven't checked it out yet, that it's just recording both cameras on separate tracks on the card, but we'll see that at the end of the review. To get into the menu, you first have to pause it, and you do that just by tapping the center button there once, and then hold it down, and they are just touch sensitive buttons, they're not actually click buttons. And you've got your main menu here. There's not too much in it. ABC is for setting your time and date. Playback allows you to view things on the screen. Record takes you back to the cameras, and setup is where you can set your options. Pretty much the only thing in the options you're going to set is the very first time you get the camera, your refresh rate, that's for your display while editing, 50 or 60 hertz, and that'll bring me to a note here in a second, and your recording quality. Now there are only 3 options. They're not great, and there's only one I would ever use. The lowest quality is called standard, 720p at 30 frames a second. Then they have what they call sport, which is 720p at 60 frames a second. And then they have what they call cruise, which is 1080p at 30 frames a second. And that's okay. That is more than enough for the vast majority of people out there. So that's what I'll be using. But my point of recording this right now is to further go over wrong and bad information. I was going through the user manual, which by the way is only online. The only thing you get in paper is the quick setup, which is again riddled with wrong information. But here's one. I mean, it just points out my problem. I was looking into what the different modes were because cruise, sport, and standard tells you absolutely nothing. So I was looking that up, and while I was in here, I noticed they call it flicker. They've got the value switch. They say for US and North America, set it to 50 hertz and most other countries 60. Absolutely wrong. You will have terrible results if you try to record at 50 hertz refresh and then pull up your files and you're actually outputting in 60. So just note that all the instructions, the PDFs, the website information, and printed material is riddled with wrong and contradictory information. Blah. Anyway, back to the install. Slight change of plans on the install. I am going to be mounting this underneath my seat, and I think it should be obvious why. There is no way that anybody is going to be mounting this up in sight, on their bars especially. Even if you mounted it flush down, like down there, you wouldn't be able to see it because the screen isn't high quality enough. So having it mounted to where it's at the right angle, you're left with this huge tangle of wires, and this doesn't even include a couple optional accessories. This is just the basics. Plus, there is no secure way to mount this. I've just got this on one of my RAM mount balls right now, and they really need to provide, if they're gonna do any kind of dash mounting, they need to get rid of this clamp thing, focus, and get an actual RAM mount option, because this is flimsy as heck. This built-in ball joint has no tension. This is screwed down as tight as it will go, and it doesn't do a thing. Plus, this little plastic lock ring here, again, doesn't do a thing. It's screwed in as tight as it can go, and it still completely unscrews. So absolutely useless as far as dash mounting. Let's get this guy under here, same as all the other versions. So my suggestion is, if you do need a screen, get the Wi-Fi version and then use your phone, which is the much, much better option. Forget using this up front. So I've got everything temporarily mounted here. Got the rear camera in place, front camera under the front clip where I usually put it. And the front camera is shot. Rear looks great. Picture quality is very good. And the front, come on, switch. There's nothing but snow. So, a delay of this review while I contact the company and see what the heck's going on. I double checked the connector. Obviously, everything's good here. It's an identical bullet up front at the camera. Wire isn't even, pinched or anything. It's just laying in the bodywork. Literally did nothing but unplugged it from the test bench and put it here on the bike. So fast forward here a few days, real quick update. First of all, kudos to Sykik Rider. I emailed them right after the last update. I showed and told them what was going on. They agreed to very quickly rush out a new unit with a return envelope for the old one so they can check out what's going on. And here it is, Monday morning. So great customer service. Thank you very much. Now, the funny part of the story, a couple days ago on Saturday, my buddy Jason was over. He pulled his bike in. We were rebuilding the carbs on it. He saw the system sitting here on the bike. We briefly talked about what it was. I plugged it in, showed him the fuzzy camera, told him what was going on with the review, and we just stood there talking for a minute at the most, touched and did nothing to the bike. He looks down and says, "Hey, look, it's working." It just spontaneously started working all on its own. My best guess is there's a slightly loose internal connection somewhere, maybe at the front camera, or more likely maybe at one of the cable connections. There's a cable that attaches in between the camera dongle and the main unit dongle. That was the only thing that was changed from the test bench to the bike, was that unplugged so I could route it through my front end there. That's it. But I don't trust this now, so I'm not going to carry on the rest of the review with the old unit. I'm going to pull it out. We're going to swap in this all new one and continue the video. Now, I'm going to button it back up. After swapping this, we'll go out on the road. It's still daylight. I'll get you some great daylight footage. Then in a few hours when the sun goes down, I'll go back out, get some nighttime footage. I'll get some dark and light scenes, some parking lot scenes, headlights. I want to see if I can easily read license plates, all that kind of good stuff. And then after that, I'm going to talk about how to use the files. That's been one downside to not only DVR systems, but Chinese action cameras, point and shoot cameras. A lot of them use their own special files, and they are hard to work with. They're hard to edit with. You put it in the computer, and editing software like Premiere and Final Cut and iMovie don't work with the files. You have to run them through some third-party program first just to be able to use the video files. Or they have audio sync issues, or they have weird skips. There's been something weird with them. You take video from a camera like this Panasonic GH5 or GoPros or Canon cameras or Nikons or Sony or Fuji or just about any other mainstream camera. You put that file into any mainstream editor and it just works. That's it. So that's the way it should be. Hopefully that's the way this is, because that is very important if you're actually going to be using this, especially to motovlog, since this is made for doing that. you want to be able to use the files easily. So after the final thoughts on the video, I'll come back because then I'll have editing experience and I'll give you final thoughts on that experience.
Check, check. Oh, that's loud.
Truth, I'm just back from that last daytime clip. This folder here is directly copied off the card. Inside is a F and R for front and rear folder, and it stores movie clips. Now we'll see how long these are. I have the clip size off. You can set it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, something like that. There are several choices. I set it to off so that it will give me the longest clip sizes. I can't stand it when cameras break in their clips into tiny little segments. It makes editing an absolute nightmare. So here's the front camera, you can see the rear. They should be absolutely identical. Both come on at the same time. It records both at the same time. I will also note that you need a very fast card for best results. The only one that I recommend, I've tested a lot of cards out there, is the SanDisk Extreme Pro Series. Oh, you can't see that. SanDisk Extreme Pro Series, not the Extreme, not the Ultra, nothing else, the Extreme Pros. I never have a problem with these in any camera. I use these in the micro SD, in the SD, anywhere in any camera. These are great. And I always suggest getting the maximum size that your camera can use. I have mostly 64s because it's not until very recently that devices can use the larger 128 and above cards. You can get these very inexpensively on sale on Amazon for about 25, 30 bucks. Well worth it. So let's go ahead and check out these folders here. I'm just going to pull them into my editor, which is Premiere CC, and we will see what happens. Now, like I said, normally, I simply pull in, for example, here's a folder as I'm shooting this review. These are all clips from my Panasonic GH5, and normally I just import it, it imports, and I can use it. On their bars especially. See, works totally normally. So let's see what happens when we try to import these folders. We'll go to our front first. That's not good. We have what looks like corruption, which tells me I might need to transcode these, as I have with every other freaking version of these systems. But we'll see. So now they're imported, and see what happens. We have major corruption. That's the preview window here. It's not processing anything. It imported them as normal clips. Okay, it's like it's not doing it real time. Definitely not normal. I have absolutely no clue. I've never seen this kind of corruption before. Now we get a low-level exception trying to use the files. So let's try a real-time playback. See if it'll even do that. No, and it will not. Video is paused and it gives me an exception. So, unfortunately, we are back to the exact same thing as usual. These files are 100% useless out of the camera. What we now have to do is put them through. God, it even crashed my Premiere. That's lovely. That's always so much fun. We will have to run them through Handbrake and transcode them into a normal format that an editor can use. So we will just do a test here. Try the first clip. And I'm just going to use my standard Blu-ray, which is a 1080p preset. And we'll just call this test front 1. We'll do an encode, and this is going to take quite a while. It is crunching my system. I've got an overclocked 8700K in here, and it does not like these files. I'm only crunching at 75 frames a second, and I'm recording at 30, so that's barely a 2-to-1. Anyway, stand by. We'll come back and see how the clip really looks. So now our first test clip is transcoded. We'll go back and import that file, and that is working completely normally. This is how it should have looked straight out of the system. Now, notice down here, the audio is completely clipped. That blue should not be there. This means that the microphone is just picking up insane engine noise. And I bet if I press play here, this is all we're gonna hear. Yeah, so I need to skip down. I need to see if I can even understand my voice. No, I cannot. Oh, that is ridiculous. That means I now have to record another clip because nothing I said while I was riding on the road got recorded, and I'll explain that in this next clip. Well, finding a section here where I was talking, I now have to record a completely separate voiceover and tell you guys what was going on, because this stupid thing not only records the audio from my helmet, it also keeps on the internal mic, which means all you hear is this. You can barely hear my voice over the extremely loud engine and exhaust. Wow, that's super useful. So here's the direct footage from the front and rear cameras. You'll be able to see bright sunny day, hard shadows. I got up close to a car here so we can see how easy it is to read a plate, that sort of thing. So we can easily judge the video quality. Now, what I was saying on the ride that you can't hear at all because of the way it's recording the audio is that I am going to do a nighttime footage here, and I expect it to be very good because camera sensor technology has gotten very good in the past few years. Obviously, with these huge audio blenders, it's just going to be something for an emergency that you have to then pull up the camera footage and use. You're not going to be using this on a daily regiment for any kind of normal production, period.
So I'm going to turn off my headset now, which should just switch over to the internal mics on the unit, and you can hear how it picks up normal voices.
So here's just me normally talking. I'm about 5 feet in front of the bike. We'll walk around the side here. We'll go to the rear. Now I'm about 3 feet off the back, and you can hear my voice from the back.
Okay, so I need to give another voiceover note. I just went out, did my nighttime footage. Don't worry, I'm going to show you the real footage. I'm just showing you this really quickly because I will say that these clips, if you're strictly using this for security, like something happened, just playing them straight on your computer, not bringing them into an editor, is no problem whatsoever. They're in a movie wrapper. I don't know the specifics of it. Well, actually, I can probably tell you right here. So there's some of the nitty gritty. It's in an H.264. It's at 30 frames a second at 12 megabits, which is adequate. Now remember, this is recording double that front and rear, so that's 24 megabits a second to the card. That's why you need a very fast card. And other than that, we don't get any further information. But my point was, they play very well without having to transcode or do anything like that. And since the audio is truly useless, you're not going to be motovlogging with this. So you know what? For using it for security footage, I give it a pass. No problem whatsoever. Now the front and rears do have different displays down on the bottom. This is the front cam, and this is the rear. I'm not sure why they're different, but they are not configurable. So if you like one better than the other, you're SOL there. So don't pull any info off what I'm showing you here. I'm just filming this with my phone. I'll show you the real ones in a second, but I need the voice over this because I had tried a feature in the unit that said sound recording on or off. Now I had it on before and I was hoping that off really meant internal mic off and it would still record my voice. However, it literally turns all the sound recording off. So there is no way to only record your voice and not have it completely ruin it with the sound of the internal microphone on the unit, unfortunately. Okay, back to the video. Okay, so wrapping up, I've had a chance to actually look at the footage now and analyze it for clarity and all that kind of good stuff. Final thoughts are the video quality in the daytime, spectacular. Nothing bad about it whatsoever. It's great. Nighttime, very good. It definitely has some faults. The biggest one is a lack of dynamic range. I don't think it's going to be too important. One thing you might notice is looking at the street signs. They're completely whited out because the sensor can't record the differences between deep shadows and bright lights at the same time. And it is definitely prioritizing the shadows in the nighttime, which I agree with. It has to do one or the other. And I definitely agree with going to the dark in nighttime for such a thing. This was a tough review. This was not only a lot of work, but you know, it's easy and fun to do a review of a product that is designed right, built right, does its job, and you can just talk about its merits. This had more wrong with it at every darn step. It was trying to figure out what's wrong, why it's wrong, how to work around it if possible. Well, here we are. The audio is frankly absolutely worthless. You can't hear anything from the helmet, and the audio when you're on the bike is completely clipped. They have totally botched the audio management of this system. I'm convinced that nobody put this on a bike at the company and actually tried the features, because the first person that did would have simply said, guys, this doesn't work. I mean, it's not that it works poorly, it doesn't work. The video, you know, for a dash cam type system, if you're looking for security, if you ride in a lot of traffic, if you commute, if there's just a lot of bonehead drivers or riders around you on a regular basis, I actually recommend this because this is the first generation that really does work well, given that you get a unit that works perfectly out of the box. You know what? It comes on when it's supposed to come on. It comes off when it's supposed to come off. It starts recording within a few seconds. The quality is more than good enough for security. You don't have to fuss with it. It's not giving you two weird files because, like I said, you're not going to be motovlogging with it. You don't have to worry about an editor. So don't worry about that transcoding. You're not going to be doing it. You're just going to be pulling up the files if something happens, and you will have them. So there you go. That's the best I can say about it. If you're looking for it for the Bluetooth features, I don't even know who would need the Wi-Fi feature to download files to your phone. What are you going to do with that? Maybe if you're on the roadside and you need to pull up a file and for some reason you don't want to just view the system under the seat, I don't know. But I think the base model is the one to get. It's the one with the most useful features and the lowest price. So that's what I would suggest if you're looking for a dash cam type security system. It does work. And like I said, they do have the optional GPS if you want to overlay your coordinates, and I believe it does a map. I don't have that, so I can't show you what it looks like. They also have the optional wider rear camera. And that's it. So I hope this helps somebody. I hope they really listen to everything I've said and take it to heart. I mean, I'm giving them the best constructive criticism I can possibly think of to make it a great system. And I was talking about this with other Two-Wheel Obsession members. China's the only one producing this stuff, guys. Nobody else gives a crap because there's such low demand for it. But I think this is one of those genres where people don't want it yet because they don't know they want it yet. They don't know they don't want it yet. You know what I'm talking about. If there was a well-made, works exactly as it should dash cam systems for a couple $100, they would sell like hotcakes. But there isn't yet. There just isn't. Every single one of them on the market has at least one major flaw. And this is certainly no exception. It's the closest one to getting there, but man, they got a long ways to go. Anyway, that's it. See you next time.